Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Conversation With. My name is Terrence Fox, Head of Innovation at iAdvise, and we have a real magical discussion planned for you today. With the acceleration into digital we've seen in the past year, brands now have numerous different channels and mediums to compete on for the attention of today's consumer. Of course, the experience you provide is your differentiator. I think it would be important to take a step back to really start to understand how you can build a great customer experience. So naturally, I wanted to start with our guest today to here to show you how simply you can make your customer experience more memorable or magical. I'll keep throwing that around until someone tells me to stop. He began his career at Disney in 1979, and he honed his customer service abilities there for 20 years. Today, he serves as a full-time speaker, trainer, and consultant, and he helps key brands like Verizon, American Express achieve goals related to customer service, employee development, and leadership. He's the author of two best-selling books, Lessons from the Mouse and Unleashing Excellence. And maybe those clues finally cued you into where this gentleman may have worked for quite a while, 20 years. But it's my pleasure to welcome Dennis Snow for today's session around delivering truly magical customer experiences. Dennis, great to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to be participating in the show.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. And of course, your knowledge and experience in customer service as it pertains to Disney and what you've seen over the years is going to be truly impactful today. So thank you. Pleasure is all ours. Dennis, if you don't mind me asking some preliminary questions.
Sure.
How have you been staying busy this past year? We're now in a year.
You mean after I crawled out of my fetal position last year?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing a lot of virtual programs for groups. Typically I'm in front of a live group, but I've been doing a lot of virtual programs. But in addition to that, this year I've been doing a tremendous amount of reading just to stay on top of what's going on. Books that I've been wanting to read and haven't read now. Well, I've got the time to read them, so I've been reading a lot. Podcasts, been listening to a lot of podcasts that are relevant to my topic, which is the customer experience, and just trying to stay ahead of things. I've been doing a lot of writing too, and putting things out there in written form.
Yeah, and that's always a great exercise, especially as a stress reliever, right?
Yeah.
And anxiety.
I've been working out too. That's the other thing. I've been working out more regularly than maybe I did in the past.
Good. Yeah, I didn't know when it would be appropriate to compliment you, but I know. Good. Now, for my next question, tell me a little bit about a memorable digital experience you've had as a consumer. And I'll say you can't use a Disney example.
Can't use a Disney. Okay. No. Last summer, I live in Orlando, Florida, and we get a lot of lightning storms here. We're the lightning strike capital of the world. As a matter of fact, Central Florida is the lightning strike capital of the world. And last spring, summer, we had a major outage, electrical outage. And our local utility did a wonderful job of keeping us informed via text what was going on. And about every 15 minutes, we got an update of what was happening, when we could expect the power to come back on. Because usually you're just sitting there, not knowing what's going on. You're trying to figure out, when it's going to come back on. And I thought they did a marvelous job digitally of managing the expectations of frustrated customers. Because, when the electricity goes out, that's one of the most frustrating things that you can deal with.
Right.
And so that was a very memorable, positive experience that I thought this utility had in place.
Yeah, if you're going to be going through something difficult, to be communicating and to at least have an understanding of where it stands.
Yeah, they're managing the expectations. They're still frustrated, of course, but they're managing the process rather than as the customer, me having to sit back and trying to figure out what's going on.
Yes, right. And as someone who grew up on a farm in rural New York, Dennis, where we'd lose power for a week or two.
That's a different story.
Right. With 5 siblings staring at each other. I can certainly relate to that frustration.
Candyland can only go so far.
Yeah, chutes and ladders.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And have you learned anything about yourself as a consumer in this stretch of time? Anything new that you didn't know?
I think the big thing that I've learned for myself is that I'm very comfortable with different ways of interacting with organizations. As a customer, I mean, whether it's on the telephone, whether it's face to face, via text, whatever it may be. I'm always been sort of traditional, but I realize I've gotten very comfortable with the various channels, which means my expectations are, regardless of what channel I choose to interact with the company,
right,
to be consistent. Each channel needs to be consistent with the other channels, because I might choose this one for this situation and another one for another situation. And I've also discovered that there are times when I'm using multiple channels at the same time,
right,
with an organization. So that's been a real learning for me, that I'm not as much of a dinosaur as I used to think I was.
Yeah. And you mentioned these other channels, right? I think that's been a big eye opener for a lot of brands these days. Is you need to be where your consumer is.
Yeah, you can't be good at just one of the things anymore. You've got to focus in on how does the consumer consume your product?
Of course, right. And making sure you're there and making sure that it, as you said, feels like one single organism.
Yeah, because a lot of times it depends on who you talk to, on who you're interacting with. You want it to be consistent.
Absolutely. So let's get to Disney. Tell me a little bit about your time at Disney and why you feel it's been so crucial to developing your customer experience skills.
Well, I worked there for 20 years. I started out on the front lines as a ride operator and then got into management. And I think the biggest thing that I learned from that experience is that it's the little touches that you do, the little moments of wow, of asking a family if you can take a photograph for them so they can all be in the photograph, when the designated photographer pulls out the camera.
Right.
If a child's dressed up as one of the Disney princesses, call her by her princess name. Commenting on something that's on somebody's shirt or cap. All of these little things, they add up to a big thing. Right. And so that was one of the key learnings that I had was those big grandiose wows, they're not necessary. It's if you do these little things right and do them consistently, that's what creates the comfort and the loyalty factor.
Yeah, and as a father of a 1.5-year-old daughter, I can see why that'd be so impactful for the whole family, right? And that's those examples you gave.
Yeah, calling the little girl by the princess name for whatever concept or costume she's wearing, you've just made those parents so happy.
Right.
They're willing to open up the wallet even more. Okay, let me give you some more money. Let me give you some more money.
Right. Yeah. Or isn't it all Disney dollars anyway? So they can't really.
Well, they're figuring out more ways to separate you from your money. Yeah. Trust Disney is not a nonprofit organization. I don't think anybody would ever accuse them of that.
Hey, they do it well.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Well, that's the bottom line, right? Is yes, it is expensive, but people when they're leaving, wow, that was expensive. But we can't wait to come back. We're starting to make our plans for. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Right.
From a business perspective.
And what do you think other organizations can learn from Disney's approach here? And how do you use this approach to educate some of your, you act as a consultant.
Right. I do training, consulting, and speaking and so forth. And I think the big learning for any organization is products and services are commodities today. People have a lot of choices for thrill rides, on amusement park rides. Yeah. You can't compete on that. It's got to be the overall experience. So like for Disney, from the moment you start planning your vacation to the moment you leave at the end of your vacation, everything in between they view as the product. Right. So how can we make each of those elements, each of those touch points, a Disney experience? And I think any organization, it's a store or a restaurant, it could be, any organization, you look at the physical product, customers have a tremendous amount of choices. You look at the experience, now you've expanded your thinking. You think, okay, what are the various touch points and how can we make them special and loyalty driving? And that's one of the things that I help companies do is identify that experience that they're creating, that bigger product, and how do you make it special for your customers.
Yeah, you just gave an example, of course, but when you're thinking about delivering a magical customer experience, how do you really see, how do you help brands really engage their employees, and how does this translate into customer success, right? And happiness.
You mean employee engagement?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, it comes down to what people are doing within the organization, and how they're interacting with somebody, whether it's digitally or face to face. However they're doing it.
Yeah.
They're part of the show. So at Disney, they call their employees cast members, and that's a very carefully chosen phrase, cast members, because they want you to know you're part of the show. You're part of the experience.
You're always being watched, maybe?
You're always being watched. And what people remember is how they're treated, right? That's what people really remember. And you can tell instantly when somebody really cares about you and partners with you in the success of whatever it is you're doing versus somebody who processes you through a system. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I see out there is many organizations process their customers. And it's really hard to feel that loyalty factor when you've just been processed through a system.
Right.
Versus you deal with a company and you can tell just by, the words they're using, the way they're doing it, that they truly care. Now as the customer, you feel valued. That's the loyalty driver.
Absolutely. And with this tremendous, obviously it's been a wild 12 months. Full year, right?
Yeah.
It took me saying that to really realize it. But with the changes we've seen in the last year and the obvious trend towards digitalization, how has this kind of challenged your approach in the way that you share how brands should grow and improve that experience today?
Well, I think that, from the digitalization standpoint, the biggest thing that I see happening is expectations around speed. That people are more comfortable with technology right now because they've been forced into it. They've been forced into using technology that maybe they weren't comfortable with before. Now people are very comfortable with technology for the most part. And that translates to their expectations of speed. How quick, it used to be, companies would say they've created a wow if they get back to you by the end of the day. Right. Yeah. That's now it's by the end of the next 5 minutes. If you don't respond within, a very condensed amount of time, people are frustrated. So that's one of the things that I think that organizations really have to look at and perhaps step up their game is how responsive are they to their customers, and regardless of what channel the customer is using. That old thing of by the end of the business day, that's gone. That's gone now. They expect.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen, of course, the big names really capitalize on that, right? The obvious example is Amazon. I think if my wife orders something, I'm half expecting a drone to be coming around the trees in the distance.
I agree. Well, they call it a person from Amazon that I was talking to one time said people suffer from Amazomnesia, which means something arrives that you even forgot you ordered.
That's, I don't know, Dennis, maybe you've been a long time fan of this segment, but that's a joke I've made in the past.
Oh, have you really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I have a quiz with my wife. She can't open the Amazon package unless she can tell me what it is.
Yeah. Right? Well, it happens. I mean, you remember you used to wait with bated breath for something to be delivered, because it took weeks. Now I forgot I even ordered that. But
that's not convenience in a nutshell, right?
And convenience too. That's another thing from Amazon, that expectation around convenience. So for Disney, one of the learnings from COVID is that increased digitalization, where your iPhone, your smartphone, can get you into the park, can get you into your hotel room, can check you in for your hotel room. You can buy your merchandise, you can get your fast pass, and it's all in that one mechanism. And this has really forced them to use it even more. so that things are kind of touchless, throughout the experience. And many of those things, I think, will be here to stay.
Yeah, and I'm still, just between you and I'm still the type that I'm wowed that I no longer have to touch a menu anymore when I go out to eat, right? Yeah. That's still blowing my mind.
Yeah.
Dennis, what do you see as some of the biggest mistakes businesses are making today as it pertains to the customer experience?
I think the biggest mistake is companies don't take the time to think about what the customer experience is supposed to be. They haven't defined, those touch points that I talked about earlier.
Right.
They haven't defined, okay, what do we want to happen anytime we're interacting with a customer in one of those channels, that we're dealing with. So I think one of the things that Disney did that was very, very well done, and I worked there for 20 years, is there was no doubt what the guest experience was supposed to be, and that you as a cast member were a part of that experience. It was around you all the time, from the hiring process to new hire orientation to ongoing training to meetings that you have with the team. Everything reflects back to that experience that they're trying to create. And some people say, well, that sounds like brainwashing. And I always say, no, it doesn't. That sounds like really good business.
Yeah.
That it doesn't matter who you're interacting with. It's a consistent experience. It's still a Disney experience.
Right. So on that topic, let's talk about some of the challenges that might exist for Disney in the industry today.
Well, I think the big one is going to be re-onboarding people that have been laid off or furloughed,
right.
Hiring new people. When the vaccine is going to be a major factor in when this happens, but there's going to be a tipping point where organizations that really had to downscale now are in the mode of, okay, we need to be re-onboarding our people or hiring new people. And with my clients, I say, start planning that now, how that's going to happen. You don't want to be playing catch up and suddenly, you're bombarded with new customers, you're opening up your doors again, or you're increasing your capacity. That's not the time to be thinking about your hiring or your re-onboarding strategy. Now is the time to be thinking about it.
Right, absolutely. And of course, that sort of disjointed, unorganized feel is pushed at the customer as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The customers know, we used to hire, and they still do at Disney, hire a lot of part-time people, temporary people. They all go through the same training, because the guest should never know that this is a part-time person or this is a full-time person, or this is somebody who's just going to be working there over the holidays versus somebody who's worked there for 20 years. The guest should never know that. So, again, surrounding people with, this is what the experience is supposed to be.
Right. And making it incredibly known too amongst the organization, I think, is a very big takeaway.
Right. And that goes to keeping it simple too. Some organizations really overcomplicate this stuff. What I do with clients is I say, define 3 things you want your customers to say about their experience, any experience they have with you. What are 3 things that you would want them to say? And that makes them get kind of laser focused on, okay, what is our differentiator? If I have to figure out 3 things, then once you have those 3 things, so what has to happen then in order for customers to say those 3 things? And that makes you start thinking about behaviors. What are the behaviors I need to exhibit so a customer says XYZ?
Right. Absolutely. You mentioned the cell phone. Do you see any other changes that's occurred with Disney that you think are here to stay?
Well, again, I think that the Fast Pass is going to come back. They haven't been using that recently because you actually have to make a reservation to go to the parks. There's talk that reservation to go to the parks may stay.
Oh, okay.
That may be something that stays. I can't say for sure. Don't make any stock purchases based on that comment, but that may be something that stays. But I think a lot of the touchless components, the ordering food, you can purchase merchandise on your cell phone and have it delivered to your hotel room and so forth. I think those are things that are going to stay.
Got it. And my last question for you, kind of off the cuff, Dennis, is You serve as a consultant for these huge brands today, the president of Snow and Associates. This is your role as a kind of a CX beacon, I'll call it, at a crazy time. Do you have any sort of wild 2021 CX predictions or things that maybe you would hope brands kind of take on this year?
Well, and it's going to sound like I'm speaking selfishly, but I'm not. Whether they hire me or not is irrelevant. I think we need to up our game in terms of keeping our employees focused on the experience. So whether that's training, communication, reinforcement, coaching, all of those leadership elements. I think organizations have really got to step up their game on how they do that, because that's going to continue to be the driver of success, going forward. Again, even though COVID is going on, people still have a lot of choices for whatever it is you sell. And the experience is going to be the thing that makes the difference.
So we actually, Dennis, we have a question for you. Fritz decided to surprise you and prompt it.
Okay.
So the question, this focuses on the parks that might reopen soon. However, how does Disney face the current growing customer base on shopdisney.com? So do you have much to say on the digital side as well?
Well, the whole Disney experience goes hand in hand.
Sure.
So the digital experience and the park experience are linked. People who go to Disney World buy Disney products. People who buy Disney products, they want to go to Disney World. So I think what we'll see going forward is more of a seamless synergy between entities within the organization. Right now, the Disney Plus, the live streaming, I think we're going to see a lot more of synergy there, publicizing the parks, products, so forth, so that again, it's a rounded Disney experience.
And one single organism, like
one single, right.
Absolutely. Well, Mr. Snow, I'll let you off the hook. You're out of the hot seat.
All right. That was a good question, though. Yeah.
It was a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much. And obviously, Snow and Associates, the president, Dennis Snow, 20-year grizzled veteran of Disney, here to share how to help brands deliver magical customer experiences. Check him out at snowassociates.com. Dennis, again, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing.
It was a pleasure being on the show. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Join us next week. We have CX expert, author of Why Customers Leave, Visibility Marketing, and many others. The conversational and very funny David Avrin joins us to tackle the customer experience gap. See you next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Thanks for joining with Dennis Snow. And of course, thank you, Dennis, for taking the time to share your insight and wisdom.